Welcome to Mindfulness Lists. Okay, today I'm going to use my big words, my big boy words. Chapter 7 of the Untethered Soul. I get this microphone on and I just want to act like that movie guy. This summer, coming to you, the Untethered Soul. Chapter 7, Transcending the Tendency to Close. Not that great of an impersonation, but maybe a 6 out of a 10, maybe a 7 out of a 10, maybe a chapter 7 out of 10. Let me tell you something. The number 7 is the inverse 13. And if you're into numerology and other types of ologies, number 13 is a very important number because the number 13 is the 13th number of the alphabet, which is M, which stands for Mitch. So there's a little bit of information for you. So chapter 7 of the Untethered Soul is called Transcending the Tendency to Close. I'll say that once more because I stuttered. Transcending the tendency to close. The foundation of spiritual growth and personal awakening are very much strengthened by the findings of Western science. So what did they find? All that goes on inside of us also has its foundation in an underlying energy field. When looking at energy patterns within yourself as well as in other living species, it's not difficult to see that the most primal energy flow is the survival instinct. Many of us no longer lack food, water, clothing, or shelter, nor do we regularly face life-threatening physical danger. You know, like back in the day, I think that's part of the limbic system that keeps us on our toes. Back in the day, you always had to be wondering if there was a saber tooth. I'm sure you've heard about this, but there's no saber tooths anymore, so we can just relax now. Protective energies have adapted towards defending the individuals psychologically rather than physiologically. So now we're protecting our minds rather than our bodies is what has happened to that shift. And you can easily feel this when we get in little, what are they called? Arguments? No, that's not blue. That's light blue. What are we defending? Our egos, probably. It's just, what does it really matter what color it is? Our major struggles end up being with our own inner feelings, fears, insecurities, and destructive behavior patterns, and not with outside forces. Nonetheless, the same impulses that make animals run away urge you to run away. Since it's not socially acceptable to run away into the woods and hide like an animal, you hide inside yourself. What you're actually doing is closing down your energy centers. You know exactly how to close down the centers to avoid being too receptive and sensitive to the different energies coming in and causing fear. When you close down and protect yourself, you're pulling a shell around the part of you that's weak. Although the situation may present no physical danger, it may cause you to experience disturbance, fear, insecurity, and other emotional problems. So you feel the need to protect yourself. The problem is that the part of you that gets disturbed is way out of balance. It's so sensitive that the slightest thing causes it to overreact. It's not healthy. If our physical bodies were this sensitive, we'd be sick. But this process only hides the problems. It doesn't fix them. We're locking our illnesses inside ourselves, and they only get worse. We'll get to a point in our growth where we understand that if we protect ourselves, we'll never be free. If you close and protect yourself, you're locking a scared, insecure person within your heart. Ultimately, if you protect yourself perfectly, you'll never grow. Life becomes stagnant when people protect their stored issues. People say things like, we don't talk about that subject around your father. It's a pain in the butt to constantly walk on eggshells for other people and for ourselves. Most people just go from day to day protecting themselves and making sure that nothing goes too wrong. The longer we live like this, the more closed we become. If you really want to grow, you have to do the opposite. Real growth happens when there's only one inside of us. There's not a part that's scared and another part that's protecting the part that's scared. All parts are unified. Because there's no part of us that we're not willing to see, the mind is no longer divided into the conscious and subconscious. Everything we see inside of us is just something we see inside of us. In order to reach the state of awareness, you must let your entire psyche surface. Every little separated piece, it must be permitted to pass through. But it'll never get exposed if you're closing yourself. When you're no longer willing to identify with the part of you that's separating itself into a million pieces, you're ready for real growth. Begin by seeing the tendency to try to protect and defend yourself. There's a very deep, innate tendency to close, especially around soft spots. You can give yourself the ultimate gift by deciding not to do that anymore. You decide instead to get rid of the part that wants to close. You start by watching life and noticing the constant flow of people and situations that hit your stuff every day. How often do you find yourself trying to protect and defend that weak part of you? If you really don't want it, then don't protect it. The reward for not protecting your psyche is liberation. You no longer have to listen to, "What will they think of me?" or, "God, I wish I hadn't said that. I sounded so stupid." You just go about your business and you put your whole being into whatever is happening instead of putting your whole being into your personal sensitivity. Once you've made the commitment to free yourself of that scared person inside of you, you'll notice that there is a clear decision point at which your growth takes place. You'll eventually get conscious enough so that when you see the energy getting strange, you stop. The moment you see the energy getting imbalanced inside, the moment you see the heart starting to tense or get defensive, you stop. You stop getting involved in the energy. What exactly does it mean to stop? It's something we do inside. It's called letting go. Just let go. Free fall. These disturbed energies will draw your consciousness to them. But you don't have to let this happen. You really have the ability to disengage and fall back behind them. Example, boy, I wish I had that car. You could just keep on walking, but instead you start getting upset. You want that car, but your salary isn't high enough. So you begin thinking of how you can get a raise or a different job. You didn't have to do all that. It could have just been, here comes the car, there it goes. And here comes the thought, and there it goes. They're both gone together because you didn't go with them. That's what's called being centered. If you aren't centered, your consciousness is just following whatever catches its attention. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Look at that. There are people like that. They don't hold jobs very well and relationships don't tend to work out for them. They're just all over the place. Their energy is very scattered. You have the ability not to go with any of these thoughts. You can just sit in the seat of consciousness and let go. If you want to be free, and every time you feel any change in the energy flow, relax behind it. Don't fight it. Don't try to change it. And don't judge it. You have to let go of all your thoughts and emotions if you want to be free. It's actually about letting go of the pull that the energy itself has on your consciousness. The disturbed energy is trying to draw your attention into it. The consciousness experiences the creation of thoughts and emotions, and it has the clarity to see where they came from. It sees all of this without even thinking about it. It sees what's going on inside as easily as it sees what's going on outside. All the energies that it watches will just come and go unless you lose your center of consciousness and go with them. First, you start to have a thought or feeling. The feeling could be as subtle as your energy flow starting to tighten and become defensive, or it could be something much stronger. When you concentrate on these thoughts and emotions, they become more charged with energy and power. Eventually, what started as a passing thought or emotion could become the center of your entire life. If you don't let go, it could get completely out of control. A wise person remains centered enough to let go every time the energy shifts into a defensive mode. The moment the energy moves and you feel your consciousness starting to get drawn into it, you just relax and release. It's simply a matter of taking the risk that you're better off letting go than going with the energy. So you decide to use life to free yourself. You become willing to pay the price for freedom, any price. You realize that the only price you have to pay is letting go of yourself. You simply learn how to release the tendency for getting drawn into the energy. You will see that the energy does have the power to draw you in. Even once you have decided you're not going to let this happen, it still has a tremendous power over you. Because the tendency to get drawn in is constant, the willingness to let go and fall behind the thoughts and emotion has to be constant. Your center of consciousness is always stronger than the energy that's pulling on it. Don't think you'd be free if you just didn't have these kinds of feelings. It's not true. If you could be free even though you're having these kinds of feelings, then you're really free. If you learn to remain centered within the smaller things, you'll see you can remain centered with the bigger things also. No matter what happens in life, it's always better to let go rather than to close.
Eventually, time is an angel or devil, best friend or worst enemy.